Hello friends, this is Nishant Gautam, Associate Professor from the Department of Pharmacology, Laureate Institute of Pharmacy. Today I am going to teach the subject Anatomy, Physiology and Health Education. In this subject, as per your curriculum, in the first unit, there is a chapter that is tissue level of organization. As the name suggests, in this topic, we will learn about the tissue types and the structure of the tissue, function subserved by them, and the location in the human body. This is a big chapter, so I have divided into the 5 parts. So let us start with the part 1. So before to start this topic, let us go through the learning outcome of this presentation. So the learning outcome of this presentation, you will be able to identify the different tissues of the body. Also, you can explain the function of each tissues based on their individual location. You will be able to differentiate the different tissues based on the location and the function subserved by them. Also, you can identify and explain the different types of connective tissues as to location and their functions. Further, you can identify the different structure of tissues as location and function. And also, you can compare the tissue as to their function. Now, let us go through the term tissues. So, what is tissues? Before to know about the tissues, we have to know about the cell. So, question arises, what is the cells? Cells are the smallest functional and the structural unit of life. Also, we can say the cell is the building block of all life. Then, now come to the definition of tissues. If you will see, in a complex organism, cells group together with one another based on similar structure and function to form tissues. Actually, at the tissue level, tissues consist of similar types of the cells. So in short, we can say a group of cells with similar structure and function is called as the tissues. So we learn the tissues are the group of cells. The human body is having a lot of types of the cells, in which a special kind of cells is called as the stem cells. So let us discuss what are they. Most cells in the human body have an assigned purpose. They are liver cells, fat cells, and so on, etc. These cells can replicate of their own kind of cell, but they cannot differentiate into another kind of the cells. On another hand, the question arises, what are the stem cells? So, the stem cells are primitive cells from which all other cells developed. They are undifferentiated cells with the ability not to only to self-replicate but to specializes to become different type of human cells. There are several types of the stem cells. So the stem cells are a mesenchymal stem cell is a primitive cells with the ability to reduce the inflammation. They can fight with that of the apoptosis, that is the cell death, and they are having the ability to differentiate into multiple tissues like muscle tissue, bone tissue, fat and cartilage tissues. And as we discussed, they are having the ability to self-replicate also. Such kind of the primitive cells are called as the stem cells. So, we heard many about the preservation of stem cells because they has strong potential for tissue repair. But the question arises how they can do. So, the answer is because the stem cells having the potential for the self-replication. They can self-replicate. The another feature of stem cell, they can reduce the inflammation. So that what happens, they can combat the cell death. Also, in addition to this, the differentiate into more than one specialized cell of the body. In this manner, the stem cells has a strong potential for the tissue repair. Thus, with a new branch of medical biology, a interdisciplinary field, that is tissue engineering. This branch helps us for the proper utilization of stem cells to restore body tissue, to maintain them, and finally to repair them in case of any non-natural recoverable injuries. So, like that, with the help of this branch, we are utilizing the stem cells. This tissue engineering is an interdisciplinary field that applies the principles and methods of bioengineering with that of the material science and life sciences towards the assembly of biological substitutes that will restore and maintain and improve the tissue functions following the damage either by disease or traumatic processes. Some of the scientists called the tissues as the living fabrics. Actually, the word tissue derived from the old French word meaning to weave, reflecting the fact that the different tissues are woven together to form the fabric of human body. There are the four basic types of tissues, which are the epithelial tissues, connective tissues, muscular tissues, and the nervous tissues. And if you will talk about their functions, they are categorized as: if a single broad functional term were assigned to each basic tissues, the term would be like: the tissues which gives the covering are called as the epithelial tissues. The tissues which functions serve as the supportive functions are called as the connective tissues. The tissues which helps the movement of the body or the organs are called as the muscle tissues. And the tissues, those are responsible for the control and coordination, are considered as a nervous tissue. However, these terms reflect only a fraction of the functions that each tissue performs. Later we will discuss in detail about the same. Now, after this much discussion, a question arises: from where these different kind of tissues for different assigned purpose are originated. That is the origin of tissue. Actually, a fertilized egg divides to produce three primary germ layers. which we can understand with the help of this diagram. That is, the ectoderm, mesoderm and the endoderm are the three primary germ layers. These layers differentiate to form the tissues of the body. Only these layers are responsible for the formation of different types of the tissues which we have studied. So the question is, what is differentiation? So we will study in the next slide what is the differentiation. So what is differentiation? Actually, the differentiation is the process by which an unspecialized cell, such as an fertilized egg cell, divides many times to produce specialized cells that work together and make up the body, is called as the differentiation. Actually, what happens? Every cell in the body was originated from a single fertilized egg, the zygote, that divides many times to produce an embryo. Then these embryonic cells differentiate into many different cell types, approximately up to the 250 type of the cells, and form a newborn baby to an elderly adult. So, a differentiated cell will develop specific structures and perform certain functions. So, as we studied that fertilized egg divides to produce three primary germ layers: ectoderm, mesoderm and the endoderm. These three layers differentiate to form the different tissues. Here with this simple diagram, we can get the detailed information of the same regarding the embryonic origin of tissues and major organs. See in this diagram, the first germ layer, ectoderm, it gives rise to the epidermis, glands on skin, some cranial bones, pituitary and adrenal medulla, the nervous system, the mouth between cheeks and gums, the anus. That is, give rise to the skin cells, neurons and the pigment cells. Whereas the second germ layer, that is mesoderm, gives rise to the connective tissues proper: bone, cartilage, blood, endothelium of blood vessel, muscle synovial membrane, serous membrane lining body, cavities, kidney and the linings of gonads. Means the mesoderm gives rise to the cardiac muscle, skeletal muscle, tubule cell of kidney, red blood cells and the smooth muscle. Whereas the third germ layer gives rise to the linings of airways and digestive system, except the mouth and distal part of digestive system, that is the rectum and anal canal. In case of the glands, the digestive glands, endocrine glands and the adrenal cortex. Means endoderm gives rise to the lung cell, thyroid cell and the pancreatic cells. So let us see the characteristics of body tissues. Here question arises again, what is tissue? Wait a minute and think, you will get its characteristic feature also. So what is tissue? A tissue is a group of cells that usually have a common embryonic origin and function together to carry out specialized activities. That is the group of cells with similar structure and function. Here you see we already discussed about their common embryonic origin and their function substrate. On the basis of this, we can give the answer of this question, that what are the characteristics of a tissue. The tissues may be hard like bone, semi-solid like fat, or even liquid like blood in their consistency. The tissues in the human body contribute to homeostasis by providing diverse functions, including the protection, support, communication among cells, and the resistance to that of with the disease. Now, in these tissues, that is the group of the cells, let us discuss about the cell to cell communication within this tissue structure. Most epithelial cells, some muscle and nerve cells are tightly joined into functional units. Cell junctions are contact points between the plasma membranes of the tissue cells. In addition to this, the cells are often connected to each other by intercellular junctions, providing our tissue with a mechanism to become specialized. For example, the cardiac muscles. Now, focus to this structure here clearly seen. The group of cell is there, and in this structure the three junctions are there: gap junction, tight junction, and the desmosome. Let us discuss in detail one by one. First, this one is the gap junction. What is the gap junction? It is clearly seen in this picture. There is a gap and it is the junction between the two cells. The gap junction connect the cell membranes of adjacent cells but have channels to allow the ions to move at the either side. Then the another is the tight junction. So these tight junctions occur when cell membranes of adjacent cells are tightly fused. The third one is desmosome. The desmosome form small reinforced region of cell membrane of the cells. Like that, three intercellular junctions are there among the cells within the tissues. Now, let us revise the same with the help of this three-dimensional diagram. We already discussed the three junctions. Here, see, the first one is the tight junction. See here, the structure of this tight junction, it is showing the interlocking junctional proteins, intercellular space. So, this tight junction is impermeable junctions, prevent the molecule from passing through the intercellular space. The second one is the desmosomes. See here in this, the intercellular space is there, plaque is there, and the intermediate filament is there, and at the center the linker, that is the glycoprotein, is there. This desmosome anchoring the junction bind adjacent cells together and help form an internal tension reducing network of the fibers. It is mainly due to the intermediate filament and with that of the linker glycoproteins. Then the third one is the gap junction. See in this diagram, there is a intercellular space and the channel between the cells. This gap junction helps in the communicating with the cell to cell and allows the ion and small molecules to pass from one cell to the next for the intercellular communications. Now let us discuss the classification of the tissues. The tissues vary in their composition and their function. A basic understanding of the role of each tissue makes understanding the specific functions easier. The body tissues can be classified into four basic types according to their structure and functions. The first class of the tissue is the epithelium tissue. Epithelium tissue lines the hollow cavities of the body and covers the surfaces. The second one is the connective tissues. Connective tissues provides protection and the support by the binding of the organ and the organ system. Then the third one is called as the muscular tissues. The muscular tissues are responsible for the movement and locomotion of the organ and the organism. Then the fourth one is called as the nervous tissues. The nervous tissues helps in receiving the stimuli and they conduct the impulses so that they play an important role in the communication among the cells and the organ system. Again, here I summarize these four classes of the tissues into the subcategories. Then these four connective tissues are divided into their respective subcategories. The first one is the epithelial tissues. The epithelial tissues are further subcategorized into five: squamous epithelium, cuboidal epithelium, columnar epithelium, ciliated epithelium, and the glandular epithelium. On another hand, this epithelium is further can be divided into the two: simple epithelial and the stratified epithelial that we will discuss later. Then the second class of the tissue is the connective tissue. The connective tissue is further divided into the four subcategories. The first one is the areolar connective tissue. The areolar connective tissue is further categorized into two: the tendon and the ligament. Then the second connective tissue is the adipose connective tissue. Then the third one is the skeletal connective tissue, which is further categorized into two: the bone and the cartilage. The fourth connective tissue is the fluid. The fluid type of connective tissue is the blood and the lymph. Whereas the blood is the largest fluid connective tissue of the human body. Then the fourth class of the tissues is the muscular tissues. This muscular tissue is further categorized into three, that is the stratified muscular tissue, smooth muscle tissue, and the cardiac muscle tissue. Then the last fourth class of the tissue is called as the nervous tissues. Now, with the help of this diagram, we can easily understand the different locations of these categorized tissues. First one is the epithelial tissues. See its location and its function. It lines the surfaces in the body. The second one is the muscle tissues is made up of fibers and contracts. See its location. Then the third one is the nervous tissue. It consists of cells with projections that transmit the electrical signals. Then the fourth one is the connective tissues. Connective tissues are the loose connective tissues acts as padding under skin elsewhere. Then the second and third one is bone and cartilage. Are the connective tissue made up of cells in a hard or stiff extracellular matrix. Then the fourth connective tissue is the blood, a connective tissue made up of cells in a liquid matrix present in the closed circulatory system of the body. So, here with this diagram, we can get more information about different kind of the tissues. See here, the first one is the loose connective tissue under the skin. In this, we can see the presence of collagen fiber and the elastic fibers. Then the second one is fibrous connective tissue forming a tendon. Here we can see there is a presence of collagen fibers and the cell nucleus. Then the third one is the adipose tissue. In this we can see there is a presence of the fat droplets. Then the fourth one is the cartilage at the end of a bone. We can see the presence of the matrix and the cartilage forming cells over here. Then in the fifth one is the bone. You can see the presence of central canal, matrix and bone forming cells. And the last, that is the sixth one, in this we can see the blood. Here we can see that is the presence of plasma, white blood cells and the red blood cells. Now it's a time for the revision and the summary of this class. So the first question is, what is epithelial tissues? So what are they? They covers body surfaces and lines hollow organs, body cavities and ducts. It also forms the glands, are called as the epithelial tissues. And the second one is, what are connective tissues? Connective tissues protects and support the body and its organ. Various types of connective tissue bind organ together, store energy reserves as fat and helps to provide immunity to disease causing organisms. Then what are the muscular tissues? Muscular tissues generate the physical force needed to make body structure move and generate body heat. Then the nervous tissue. What are they? They detect the change in a variety of conditions inside and outside the body and respond by generating action potential, that is called as the nerve impulses that activate muscular contraction and glandular secretions for that response. So that's all for the day. We will continue the same chapter tissue in part 2. Till then, revise the topic from the book. Have a nice day and thank you.